Hey there, Turf Show Times. This is Kenneth Arthur, managing editor at Turf Show Times, an LA Rams blog over at SB Nation. Welcome to the Turf Show Times YouTube channel. And today I just wanted to go over, I don't know how common it is for other people to use overthecap.com, Spotric, which I don't know how to say that, but that.com. I'm a frequent user of especially overthecap.com. It was just the one that came across me first. I felt like it was a little easier to navigate. And then I came over the years to appreciate Spotric, whatever it is, as well. You know, they're both doing great work. It's impressive, and it's well above my head to really understand how they do what they do. And I'm not an expert on the salary cap by any means, but I have been looking at this stuff day after day after day for many years. And finally, after a while, I get a very loose grip on it. And I wanted to share some interesting facts, but especially one most interesting fact here in the 2024 season that the Rams are on pace for. But first, let's talk about the Rams salary cap and a little bit about how to use these salary cap websites, even like overthecap.com. Again, I don't know, maybe this is boring, like you've already seen this or you already know all of this and how to use this, but maybe there's one person out there who doesn't and would enjoy it. So this is for that person, and that's it. You know, this is for that person. I guess it's not for you, but you're also welcome to check my work here and tell me if I'm missing something or if I'm doing something wrong. But let's talk about the real Rams cap situation for 2022 as it stands right now. You can go over to all of the team's salary cap and what overthecap.com, you know, they have all those numbers reported from the league on player contracts and who's under contract for every team. And then it's not so hard to add that up. And then you've got your cap space, where at this point the Rams are sitting at $8.8 million, which may be surprising to a lot of people given all of the contracts that the Rams have given out over the last few years and how many of those players seem to have been cut before the contracts even started, with all that dead money and having a very talented roster at the moment. You know, and last year the Rams still managed to have $8.8 million, and the effective cap space is what we want to look at next. And surprisingly, the Rams don't have that much of a difference here between cap space and effective cap space. Some of these teams have a remarkable difference sometimes in those two numbers, and essentially effective cap space is taking into account certain parts of the salary cap that you may not think about or that may not make the headlines. Especially, we're talking about draft picks that you have to pay. You got to pay, you know, that's one of the things. Rookie contracts aren't $0. So even though they are nice values often, it's not free, especially those first round picks, which is where the Rams don't have a very big difference between their cap space and their effective cap space, because the Rams don't have a first round pick, because the Rams don't have a second round pick, and because the Rams don't have their original third round pick. They don't have to worry about a lot of money in the future to pay their rookies and their practice squad. That stuff is going to pale in comparison to what Aaron Donald makes in a week. So there's not a big difference there, as opposed to maybe a team like the Giants, who have 2 top 10 picks, and therefore they got to allocate another $10 million to their rookies. That's something that we never talk about with regards to the salary cap and trading first round picks, really, which is the savings that come with it and the non-savings that come with multiple first round picks. You see the Jets here have $16 million in cap space, but they've only got $4 million in effective cap space because the Jets also have 2 top 10 picks and they've got 2 early second round picks. So that's all stuff that the Rams do not have to account for, and that's why the Rams actually have the closest thing in the NFL to the same amount of cap space as what we actually see on the books right now. Dead money is not so bad. That's the money that goes in bonuses to the players that you sign. If you pay somebody a signing bonus or a roster bonus, I don't think it's a roster bonus, but if you pay somebody a signing bonus, then that is spread out over the life of maybe the contract for I think it's up to 5 years, but it's spread out. And then if you cut that player before at the end of it, you cannot change that prorated cap hit number. That's dead money if the player is cut, or it's dead money even if the player is still on the team, because it's just accounting for money that you've already paid that player in a signing bonus, which is why you heard this year all the stuff that the Rams had to do to get back under the salary cap. And a lot of that happens when you give guys a signing bonus based off of what they were getting paid in their base salary. You can see it's pretty easy to identify who those players are going to be because you're looking for veterans who have a very low base salary. You've got Leonard Floyd here, only a $1.5 million base salary and a $6.5 million prorated bonus because the Rams had to restructure his contract to change the amount he was going to make in base salary into a bonus, which increases the prorated bonus. And then it makes it harder to cut that player in the future without it being a hit on the wallet because now that's all adding up in your dead money. So prior to this, the Rams, who signed Leonard Floyd to a contract just last year, it essentially is like re-signing him to a new contract, basically. That's probably the best way to think of it. It's like, is that because when you give a guy a new contract and you want that low cap number because you're building a roster that you want to compete this upcoming season, and so you're basically just trying to get all your eggs in the same basket, but then you got to start cracking some eggs and crushing them in your hands and getting those shells crushed down to save space, and then you've got yolk everywhere, but that's how you get the Rams roster with so many talented veteran players on it, is that you're basically condensing all of these players and pushing the money not just down the line, but guaranteeing more money that makes it more difficult to cut those players because the savings are so little. But then that's why you see teams get cut, guys get cut, and there's not really any savings attached to it. It's just because, well, that team had already decided that it might just be a loss in the near future when they restructured his contract. So you see Leonard Floyd, the Rams would have been able to get away from this contract in 2023 if they hadn't restructured his deal this year to save money, and then they increased his prorated bonus to $6.5 million per year, meaning that the savings are only $3 million with a $19 million dead money hit. That's a confident that's one. It's trying to keep Leonard Floyd this year. It's a slight endorsement that says, yeah, Leonard Floyd is good enough that the Rams would like him or would be fine with him on the roster next year as well, because that's almost guaranteed. And as you can see, free agent signee Allen Robinson, only a $1.5 million base salary this year. Same with Joseph Noteboom, re-signed. Same with the contract extended Matthew Stafford on a $1.5 million base salary. This is how the Rams were able to get all of these players and keep all these players, just like it was last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, had all these talented players, and you would think, how could they possibly afford all those guys? And then the Bucs brought back every single starter on offense and defense and the key backups. So that's basically how the Bucs did that, and that's how the Rams are repeating. As Super Bowl champions, we see. Well, maybe the Rams will repeat as Super Bowl champions, but that's how the Rams have managed to stay together after becoming Super Bowl champions. Of course, Andrew Whitworth is not one of those players. But the Rams, like I said, they no less have to pay. They won't pay this roster bonus, but they'll no less pay out his prorated bonus because that money has already been paid to Andrew Whitworth and already been allocated to this time frame. So that's the Ram. A snapshot at the Rams this season. We see Aaron Donald is the highest paid cap hit on the team. He had a $5 million roster bonus, a $12.5 million prorated bonus. Again, that's because Aaron Donald restructured last year, increasing his prorated bonus. And if we look at Aaron Donald's contract here, you can see that his base salary last year was only $1.9 million. That's because he restructured. It increases his prorated bonus. It makes him not impossible to cut, because you can always cut a player. It just means that if he retires even, that part of guaranteed, I think, maybe if he retires, he won't get the guaranteed salary. But no less there will be a hit on the Rams and this part of the prorated bonus in 2023 and 2024. There's no getting out of that. It'll just be getting rid of this roster bonus and these base salaries because there's no guaranteed base salary for Aaron Donald here. But that's how you see how the restructures keep players in place. And that's how the Rams have managed to keep together the roster as well. You can see Cooper Kupp has a high base salary, second highest on the team behind Jalen Ramsey. So far, the Rams have not restructured Jalen Ramsey or Cooper Kupp. And again, if they do that, it really locks those players in for longer. And you're saying, well, that's a good thing. But you just never know in the NFL when an injury or, a sharp decline for whatever reason will happen. And that's probably not going to be the case this upcoming year with Jalen Ramsey or Cooper Kupp. But it's still no less a consideration the teams have to make because as soon as you turn this into a bonus, you increase this, and then this becomes no go. There's $5.6 million. That won't be any savings if the Rams restructured him. There'd be no savings in 2023, and then the savings in 2024, instead of it being $15 million, would be negligible. The idea here is, of course, to keep Jalen Ramsey on the team throughout his contract. But I'll tell you what, players very rarely get out of this final year when they're 31. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but you just look at Von Miller. He got to the end of the contract, but with the other team. Even a guy like Von Miller, who unbelievably played out a 6-year contract and then got another 6-year contract. That's how rare and special Von Miller really is as a player, as a career player, But that's where there is some very serious consideration to be made a bit before you start restructuring, because people very casually talk about, well, just restructure to get under the cap, just restructure. It's just like, well, you could be creating problems where you have to continually restructure, which is what the Eagles and Saints have been doing. And if you don't know where the Eagles and Saints are, just look because they look fine here because they've done all of their restructures, and we know that the Saints were trying to get Deshaun Watson, so that's why they all of a sudden have this cap space, right? And you think, well, there you go, the Saints have cap space. The Saints have $40 million negative $40 million in effective cap space in 2023. So that's what you really need to be looking at, because you look at here and you go like, the Saints did a great job, as if they released. No. They restructured and they pushed all their money into the future, and now they're $40 million in debt, and they're going to have to restructure and release and stuff like that. I haven't looked at the Saints. I can't really tell you exactly what they're going to do, but you can look at it and go, oh, look, Michael Thomas now has a $1 million base salary. Cam Jordan has a $1 million base salary. Marshawn Lattimore has a $1 million base salary. Ryan Ramczyk has a $1 million base salary. Andrews Pete has a $1 million base salary. David Onyemata has a $1 million base salary. Alvin Kamara I'm sorry, but this must be so annoying. Look at how many Cesar Ruiz is a rookie contract, but that's about all those players. And now look at the base salaries for 2023. $15.5 million for Michael Thomas. He hasn't even played in 2 years. Cameron Jordan, $14 million, which, at that point it might still be valuable. He's a very good player at this age. Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, it's like very good. But then you start going, but if they can't cut these players to save money, they can't cut them to save money. They can trade them. They might be able to trade them, because if you can trade them, then you're getting rid of the base salary, and maybe you're pawning off a bonus, although the Saints still give out a ton of bonus money there for roster bonuses, and players aren't taking it. So you look at it and you just go, okay, the Saints can't really get out of that hole until these contracts expire or get into their final year. And even then, there's not a ton of savings. So that's what the Rams would be hoping to avoid by consistently or constantly restructuring, which you hear from the fans sometimes. Well, they can get under. They can do this, that, the other thing. Yeah, you can get under all right. You can get underwater and be the Saints down here. And the Eagles are a team that have often gotten into trouble that way too. Because, you look at 2024, the Eagles are all the way down here with only $45 million in effective cap space for 2024, and the Rams basically right there at the same at $46 million. And that's what I wanted to talk about 2024, because you're sitting there and you're going, well, that's so far down the line. It's only 2 years away, but think about what the Rams, for their long-term vision, think about what the Rams need to happen for this amount of cap space, which it will change significantly as the years go on. Of course, we get closer. There'll be some big changes on there, but it's going to be difficult for the Rams to get out of that cleanly, and to they're going to need the players that are on the roster right now under contract to be just as valuable in 2024. And think about what that entails in the NFL. There are very few players like Andrew Whitworth who could hold their value from 2017 to 2021 on the Rams roster, and especially at his age, from 36 to 40, to still be effective for 4 or 5 years. It's very rare. I mean, the Rams have moved on from Robert Woods. We've seen the Rams move on from so many players that they thought were going to be around for a long time, like Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks. And the Rams consistently move away from those players, and they managed to field another competitive, probably another Super Bowl contending roster for 2022. And that's what you should be doing, I think. You should be trying to win the next season and figure it out the next year. It's okay to challenge yourself to do that. Not everything has to be a long-term vision, but let's look at what the Rams really have in 2024, which is they have 3 players making a combined $100 million. And that's, pretty much guaranteed. I mean, the Rams could be moving some money around, and maybe one of these players won't be around, but Matthew Stafford will be around a $49.5 million cap hit in 2024. The Rams are going to pay that. It's not going to look as insane at the time, in the future as it does right now. I think $50 million, it's scary for me to think that as I'm even doing this, it's scary to think that $50 million has been normalized somewhat, just because we've seen Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's contracts and all that. And Matthew Stafford, his average salary is brought down to only $40 million. But that's a $50 million cap hit. That's what they're going to pay unless they restructure, and then they're going to guarantee his year after that, which for a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, maybe that's not a problem. We've seen players at age 34, 35, 36, 37 at quarterback, of course, thrive and win Super Bowls and even years past that. So there's always that aspect to it, and it's a worthy risk, I think, for the Rams. But it's just interesting that, we've hit this $50 million and we act like, well, this is no big deal. And I don't know, maybe people are saying this is a big deal. It just feels like a little bit normalized. And we're sitting in a year here where Ryan Tannehill is going to be the highest paid quarterback in the freaking NFL at $38.6 million. I'm just mind blown by that. And then you've got the normal guy there, Patrick Mahomes, and then Kirk Cousins at 31 and Jared Goff at 31. This is the aspect of quarterback contracts that we don't talk about, because we talk about like, wow, this guy got that, this, and the other thing. And look at these. Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins, and Jared Goff are 3 of the top 4. Carson Wentz is number 6. Jimmy Garoppolo is number 7. I mean, this is so wild. And, you still got Tom Brady as one of the values at $20 million. And we'll see if he even actually plays for the Bucs and on that contract. But, wow. Then in 2023, it shoots up to $55 million for Deshaun Watson, 49 for Patrick Mahomes, 49 for Dak Prescott, 46 for Patrick Mahomes. And the Rams will have a good steal there for Stafford at $20 million. Then you get to 2024, and Matthew Stafford is number 3, surprisingly, is Deshaun Watson, still at 55. Dak Prescott still at 52, and then Stafford jumps ahead of Mahomes there at 49. So that still means that the Rams have allocated, and maybe a couple of teams will move ahead of them at this point. They absolutely will. There'll be a few teams that actually aren't. The thing is that you would have to sign the guy to a contract within the next year. Otherwise, probably Stafford will stay number 3, and most maybe number 4, just because guys, their big cap hits will be a year or two down the line, just like Stafford's is. So it would have to be that. But so Stafford, the Rams are allocating this much. It means that they, by definition, cannot give as much money to some other positions. Some other positions will suffer. There's just no way around that, because $50 million is going to one player. We talk about how the Rams are allocating another $50 million to 2 defensive players. When you've got Jalen Ramsey, he's the number one highest paid cornerback in 2024. That's $26.7 million. Marshawn Lattimore, $23 million. J.C. Jackson at $19 million. I mean, we're talking about, these are not figures that we had expected to be going to cornerbacks by 2024. I don't think, at least. These are quarterback starting salaries, top-tier quarterback starting salaries of the early 2010s. And now we are talking about J.C. Jackson is there, and that's fine. Good for J.C. Jackson. It's just remarkable where we've been. And again, by the Rams paying $26 million, by definition, there's a salary cap. Even if you move the money around, even if you convert it to a roster bonus, the Rams really need to hit on their draft picks, because this is money that cannot go to another position. If he was making $6 million, that's $20 million that can go to other players on the roster. So that's important. And I believe the Rams can get away from that contract if they needed to. That's a $15.5 million cap savings. But for people that are advocating to turn his $17 million base salary into $1 million base salary with a $16 million prorated bonus, well, if you do that, I believe you would be spreading out, depending on how many more years Jalen Ramsey has, because he's got 4 more years on his contract. So you would be doing that in 2023. You'd be doing that in 2023. 17, that's if you took $16 million and spread it out over 3 years, you're looking at about another $5 million or whatever going on to each one of these prorated bonus. And then you're looking at this turning into like a $13 or $14 million prorated bonus every single year. And if that's a $14 million prorated bonus, and I could be doing really bad math here. I was very bad at it in high school and college. But if you're doing that, these cap savings go bye-bye. These cap savings go bye-bye. And you will be paying Jalen Ramsey the highest paid cornerback in 2024. And then you've got Aaron Donald, who, same deal. I mean, if he wants a new contract, if he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, which maybe he has the right to do, that's money that won't go. That's money that will not go to another position. And here he is, the number one paid interior defensive lineman, just ahead of Kenny Clark, just ahead of Cam Hayward, just ahead of Jonathan Allen and DeForest Buckner. And I mean, if I was paying Aaron Donald in relation to these players, he would be making $80 million as a cap hit. I mean, if you were going off of how much different Aaron Donald is to even these players, and especially to these players, I mean, he should be making 10 times what DJ Jones is making. So this is actually a steal. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is actually a steal, but it is what it is. This is $26 million. The Rams have the number one highest paid interior defensive line. This is the number one highest paid cornerback. And Matthew Stafford is the number 3 highest paid quarterback, and that's probably not going to change by much. So you've got $100 million going to those players. As I said, Leonard Floyd, by restructuring him in 2022, locks him into 2023 and increases his 2024 dead money hit. And Leonard Floyd could still get away from that deal at a $10 million savings if the Rams had to. And we're looking again at their 2024 cap space. You can go to the calculator at any point and start making actual moves and playing with it. Be careful when you play around with it, but you can start doing moves and playing around with it that way. But you restructure Leonard Floyd, the savings. 2024, you're going, hey, wow, $73 million in cap space. That's actually a lot. Let's not forget that there's effective cap space. So let's check that again. $46 million in effective cap space. This is a scary little lie. $73 million, but it's actually 46 in effective cap space because they're accounting for, things like these restructures and moving money down the line. So $46 million in effective cap space. Only the Eagles and Browns have any less. And so it's going to actually be difficult to pay Leonard Floyd in 2024. When you look at some of the outgoing free agents, talking about still money you can't roll over if the Rams re-sign Odell Beckham Jr. For this season. And there's still more holes that the Rams need to fill on the roster. And you look at 2023, are the Rams going to be able to afford Greg Gaines because of their massive cap hits in 2024? Are they going to be able to afford Nick Scott? And are they going to be able to afford there's not a whole bunch of guys that I think are going to be really shockingly bad to lose in next year. But then, if there's any breakout seasons here, obviously Jordan Fuller is a guy that you would want to keep. Tyler Higbee is so at least a guy that you would need to replace with a starting tight end, which those don't come cheap. And you look at just how the Rams, have to make sure that they don't just have money to pay these guys, but these guys are still good. Rob Havenstein and Cooper Kupp and all these guys. This is the thing that Super Bowl teams have been going over for years and years and years and decades. And as much as it feels like, oh, this will always work, we've just seen how that doesn't always happen as the case. I just think that's pretty interesting that you've got 3 guys making $100 million down the line in 2024, and 4 guys, if you include Leonard Floyd, making $120 million. And then if you're throwing in Allen Robinson and Joseph Noteboom, which, by the way, Joseph Noteboom, if he plays well enough to keep his job, $17 million cap hit for Joseph Noteboom. I mean, we're talking about starting QB salary in 2008 or 2009. For just a guy that doesn't have hardly any starting experience, and that's amazing at left. That's good for the players. That's a lot of money to go to a few players. We'll see how much the Rams cap changes from 2022 to 2023 to 2024. I hope this was educational and useful for someone out there. I know that I think I learned a few things just going through this with you. So this is Turf Show Times. Always check in on turfshowtimes.com. Follow us on Twitter at Turf Show Times, and I'll probably keep doing something like this.